All right. All right, everybody. I think we are going to get this show on the road. We have just got a short time today together, so let's get it moving, shall we? I'm Amy Rodquist Cadet. I'm a health coach with UK Health and Wellness, and I am here today to talk about a topic that's pretty near and dear to my heart. We're going to be talking about calming the mind by listening to feelings and needs. And I have found that this has been an incredibly helpful tool as my work as a health coach at UK, as well as personally in my life as a mom, as a wife, as an active member in society, wanting to live a life that is rooted in my values so that I can get closer to who I am and who I want to be. So let's begin. So one of my favorite authors, Viktor Frankl, he was a Holocaust survivor, wrote an incredible book called Man's Search for Meaning. If you're looking for an incredibly inspiring read, it's a short 100 pages. I would strongly recommend it. He said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. And that is what we are going to try to cultivate more of today, is that spaciousness between when something difficult happens to us, right? That stimulus, whatever that thing is. Maybe it's a big thing, some sort of life-threatening illness, a family crisis, a really giant stressor at work. Maybe it's a small thing, an annoyance that is just really getting under your skin and you find yourself losing your temper. Whatever it is, to be able to recognize what our response is in those times of stress and to figure out how we can respond that's more in line with our best self, that's more in line with our values, so that we can live a life that is closer to, as we mentioned before, who we are at our best and who we want to be moving forward. And what I have found is that our response lies solely within understanding what's going on mentally, what's going on physically, what's kind of going on cognitively, really taking that holistic approach. And when we can understand and work with the feelings and the needs that are going on below the surface, we have much more power to be able to craft a response that is in line with what matters most to us. So let's look at a little bit of the research. So Dr. Matthew Lieberman has done a slew of research. He is at the University of UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles. And at the end of this presentation, I'm going to give you some of the research that I use. So if any of this sparks your interest and you want to do a deeper dive, we're going to have all the resources that you could possibly want. So Dr. Lieberman's research really revolves on neuroscience. And what he has found is that when people have a wide ranging of feelings vocabulary, they're more able to accurately understand what's happening below the surface. So for instance, when somebody is like, hey, how you doing? What's going on for you? A lot of times we come and we respond with maybe just a handful of feelings. Maybe we say we're mad, we're sad, we're happy, we're tired, right? We've got these kind of automatic responses that we just kind of use to fill our days. What Dr. Lieberman suggests is expanding that feelings vocabulary. Why? Because naming a troubling feeling can calm our brains right down. So that parasympathetic nervous system, that internal relaxation response, when we are able to name what it is that we're feeling, we're able to help our body cultivate that that natural relaxation and calm our brain's fight or flight response. But it takes some practice. And so as a coach, I really love to have frameworks, right? So when the rubber hits the road, we've got something that can help us to really support us and buoy us when we're struggling. So I'd love to use Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. He created the Nonviolent Communication. It's often called NVC. Sometimes it's called compassionate communication. Dr. Rosenberg was a mediator and a psychologist by training. And it's a really fascinating and helpful tool that is all about a method of communication designed to connect with our innate capacity for compassion. And so we are going to just scratch the surface of NVC today. But if you're interested in it, I would say really give yourself the space to do a deeper dive on it, because boy, there is a lot of richness to it. So what is this NVC all about, this nonviolent communication? Really at the core is that all of our actions, everything that we say, everything that we do, we're all walking around the planet trying to get our needs met. All of us. We have this human universal needs. They're all the same, regardless of where you live, what faith tradition you practice, what language you speak. Every human on the planet has the same needs. And our feelings result from those needs being met or not being met. So for instance, when we are having a really difficult feeling, maybe we're feeling incredibly jealous, maybe we are experiencing shame, maybe we are feeling angry and even rageful, right? That comes from what Dr. Rosenberg would say are needs not being met. Or on the opposite experience, when we're feeling joy, delight, resonance, connection, those experiences are because needs are getting met. And so when we can begin to recognize, identify what the feelings are, and then go a little bit deeper into what our needs are, I'm telling you, this is one of the most powerful tools to not only managing stress, but creating a more meaningful, joy-filled life. We take our power back and we get really, really clear about what is our desire? What are we wanting? But I have to tell you, if you do this work, if you go to a deeper level on feelings and needs, you're also going to need to take responsibility. That's the tricky part, right? Because all of a sudden we start to realize it's not about the blame game. We have to take responsibility for the feelings that are bubbling up for ourselves and for the needs that aren't being met and begin to meet them. So let's talk about how we do that. All right. So the framework that I'm going to suggest we use for kind of discovering and understanding feelings and needs is the simple ABCs, right? So the A stands for acknowledge, the B for breath, and the C for choose. And so we're going to work through this today. This is going to be the framework that we're going to work with feelings and needs out of these principles of the A, B, and C. So let's start with A. So this first step, right? So let's say you are experiencing a really difficult feeling. Let's say you are feeling incredibly jealous. That first piece is to acknowledge that the feeling is happening. And honestly, y'all, sometimes that's the hardest thing. Have you ever been, maybe with a loved one or a coworker and they're like, hey, are you all right? What's going on? And you're like, I'm fine. Everything is fine. And yet the words that you're saying are definitely not matching kind of the energy that you're putting out there, right? So the hardest part, at least for me, is to acknowledge, gosh, I'm experiencing a really difficult feeling. And sometimes I don't want to admit it. So the acknowledging piece is a first one. And what I find is that, especially when it's a really troubling feeling, to acknowledge it with curiosity is one of the most helpful things that we can do. Curiosity is a lubricant that allows us to step back and away from judgment and instead almost be playful, to be curious about what is coming up for us. So on the next slide, I'm going to show you some feelings and needs. So that is what we're going to play with here. But it's really that first step of acknowledging, okay, looking through the list, what are you feeling? Seeing if you can check in. And a lot of times it's not just one thing. Maybe you're feeling a variety of feelings, especially in the beginning as you're getting used to naming some of these more nebulous feelings. It can be challenging to kind of narrow in on a few, but I promise the more you use this skill, it's like a muscle, right? The more you use it, the stronger it gets. So the first piece, acknowledge that you're struggling, that you're working with a difficult feeling. See if you can name that feeling. And practice not getting overly attached to the feeling that's coming up, right? This feeling is not who you are. And in the English language, it's a blessing and a curse, but we can say that, I am mad, or I am feeling mad. Both are grammatically correct. But what the research suggests is that when we can distance ourselves and not embody the feeling, the better off we're going to be able to move through the difficult emotion, right? So the feeling is not who you are. And sometimes it is just about the language we use. And it's a subtle shift, but I promise it's not just about semantics. So this idea of like, I am angry versus I feel angry. I am jealous versus I feel so jealous. The difference is you are not inherently filled with the anger, right? You are not the anger. The anger is a feeling that you're having. Kind of think of it as like weather, right? So you're standing out in the rainstorm, you're getting wet, but you yourself are not the rain, right? So you're experiencing the rain, you are not the rain itself. And I think weather is a helpful word picture to help us deal with this, because our feelings are a lot like weather. They move, they change, they shift. So even if you feel like you are in the tsunami of anger, the tsunami or the hurricane winds of fear, the good news here is that it is going to shift. And the faster, the faster that you are able to work with and identify and acknowledge what those feelings are, the faster they're going to shift. Another piece here in the acknowledgement is notice. And this also goes along with that curiosity. Notice what themes of needs are not being met. You're going to notice at different life stages, different times and cycles of the year, of things happening on in your life, that certain needs are going to continue to bubble up. They're going to continue to rise. I recently just gave birth to twins. Oh my goodness. Let me tell you, a whole host of new needs have begun to bubble up. Needs that I haven't felt in a really long time, since the birth of my last kiddo many, many years ago. Right? So right now I've been noticing a need, besides sleep, I've been noticing a need for more ease. I've been noticing this theme of more autonomy, right? Because right now I feel like there's a lot riding on me, and I feel like I don't have a lot of freedom and autonomy the way that I used to. And so I'm noticing that need as it comes up. And instead of fighting it, instead of being frustrated or embarrassed or ashamed, that dang it, that need for autonomy, it's back again. I'm feeling so jealous. The other night, true story, was on Instagram, right? Compare and despair. If you want to get activated and triggered when you're struggling, go on social media, right? So I saw some relatives of mine in Hawaii. I love these people. They're having a great time, and they're showing all these beautiful, beautiful pictures. I currently live in Minnesota. I work for the University of Kentucky remotely, right? The weather we are having in Minnesota is about as polar opposite as you can have in Hawaii. And I felt so much envy, so much jealousy, so much longing as I was looking at these pictures. And then I started to kind of, as Brene Brown would say, kind of shame spiral, get into that, oh, my life, la, 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 right? All the stuff comes out. So to be able to notice, like, okay, hey, this is what I'm feeling. This is the need that's underneath the feeling. And then notice, all right, that is the reality right now. You may not like it. You may not like the feeling you're experiencing, but trying to pretend that that feeling isn't existing doesn't help anybody, right? Because you can't move through a feeling until you've actually arrived and acknowledged that that feeling is happening. So here is some support as you're working with feelings and needs. And what we're going to do is we're going to have these worksheets available to you. We're going to put them up on our Be Well, on our wellness blog, so that you'll be able to download these worksheets, because I think they're really, really helpful. So on the left, we've got when feelings, these are the feelings when your needs are satisfied, right? They're the happy feelings, the fun feelings, right? The joy and the grateful and the hope and the inspiration. But I'm here to tell you that no feelings need to be banished. There aren't good feelings or bad feelings. All of the feelings that we've got are important. And it's important to honor them and allow them to be there, because they're there for a reason. They're there to give us information, right? So what do we know? When our feelings are kind of these happier, more positive feelings, our needs are getting satisfied. And then the feelings sheets to the right are the feelings when your needs are not getting met, when you're not feeling satisfied. Pain, aversion, confusion, yearning. Oh, the yearning. That's where I've been hanging out a lot lately, in the yearning category. Fatigue, also been hanging out there. Anybody else with me? Right? So get familiar with these feelings, because instead of just saying, I'm frustrated, right? You can get a little bit more clear, and you can actually say, hey, actually, I'm feeling disconnected. I'm feeling jealous. I'm feeling uncomfortable. I'm feeling frightened. And you can get more clarity. And what do we know? What does Dr. Lieberman's research suggest? The more clarity that you can get on how you're feeling, the easier your brain and your body are going to be able to have time to calm itself down. All right. So figure out what the feeling is, or feelings, right? There can be variety. And then move to this next sheet. The next sheet is the needs feeling. So if we're going to stick with that feeling of fear, right? What is that fear about? What need isn't being met, right? And maybe it's this desire for connection, and the fear comes out of this fear that you're not going to be understood. This longing for tenderness, this longing to be seen, right? Maybe the jealousy comes out of this need for autonomy, this need for companionship, this need for celebration, and you feel like nobody's seeing you, right? Whatever it is, see if you can digest and get clear on finding the difficult feeling first. And you can do it with positive feelings too, but I find that it's easier to do it with the more difficult feelings. So figure out, acknowledge the difficult feeling first, and then figure out what the need is that isn't getting met, right? And like I said, this takes some practice. Put these sheets, print them out, keep them at your desk. I literally have them in a binder and I look at them all of the time. I also, for a long time, when I was first getting familiar with this concept, with this practice, I kept them on the refrigerator. And there's even magnets you can buy with feelings and needs on them, right? So I have them in different rooms of the house because it's so much easier to notice what the feeling is when you have a list to look at. So keep the list close. And I didn't mention this before, but we'll definitely, I know there's some comments and questions coming in, and we will get to them at the end, I pinky promise. Okay, so after you've acknowledged, you've figured out what feelings bubbling up, then you come on down to the needs. The B part of the ABCs is the breath. It's to breathe. And there are a truckload of breathing tools out there. There are apps. There are so many cool different breathing tools. Pick one, right? Make it easy, make it consistent, make it a practice for yourself. I have a couple go-tos. Square breathing, the one that I'm going to talk about today, it's a really easy one. My favorite number is 4. So I love this idea of kind of 4, 4, 4, and 4. So here's how square breathing works. You breathe in for a count of 4. You hold for a count of 4, you breathe out for a count of 4, and you hold for a count of 4. The magic of the breath is in the holding. What? Who knew, right? It's in the holding and the exhale. I thought the magic was in the inhale, but what the research suggests is that it's actually what triggers that parasympathetic nervous system, that our body's calm response, is that exhale and the hold, is the manipulation of the out breath. So finding a breathing tool that really focuses in or works with the hold is going to be kind of give you a little more bang for your buck. So let's just play with this 4 times in a row, shall we? So when you have the space, what I'm going to suggest is kind of pushing yourself back away from your desk, feet on the floor, and let's just do the square breath 4 times in a row. All right? Let's play together. Here we go. So let's breathe in for the count of 4. Hold for the count of 4. Exhale to the count of 4. Hold for 4. Great, let's do it again. Inhale for 4. Hold for 4. Exhale for 4. Hold for 4. Do the last 2 on your own, 2 cycles. All right, go ahead and finish up there. So even if you don't have time to do it 4 times in a row, even just doing 1 round of the breathing of the square breath can really help to calm the body down. And as you breathe, the invitation is to just notice whatever feelings come up with kindness. Notice the sensations, any tightness that you might feel, any nausea, any hot spots, any rumbling, right? Allowing your body to experience what's going on. So much of what we're dealing with, especially in the realm of fear and stress and overwhelm, is happening in the body, but we're not listening until the body has to scream at us, right? Until we've thrown our back out, until we're very sick, until we've got a headache so bad we are just grasping at any medication to make it go away, right? When we can calm ourselves down earlier rather than later, we are able to oftentimes put a stop to kind of some of those bigger, more difficult experiences that are happening in the body. So honoring what's going on. So acknowledging, breathing. And then the last way to really work with these feelings and needs is choice, right? So the breathing has helped calm us down. Now choose. How do you want to respond? So that really difficult thing that you're feeling, right? When your needs aren't getting met, what is one small thing you could lovingly do to shift what is going on for yourself, right? So for me, in that Instagram experience, right, where I'm looking at these beautiful pictures of Hawaii and everything is perfect, I had to get off Instagram, right? Just turn it off was my solution in the moment, right? And I got up and went and made myself a cup of tea, right? Is to kind of shift. But this idea, once again, bringing in that curiosity to figure out, how do you want to respond? Because when you can respond in a way that's loving, right, that gets you closer to who you are and who you want to be, you take your power back. So if you know that you want to experience more joy, you want to experience more freedom, you want to experience more connection, whatever it is, whatever those needs are that really resonate to you, the ones that keep bubbling up over and over to yourself, how can you meet your needs? And remember, we're all just walking around the planet trying to get our needs met. But oftentimes the strategies that we're using to try to get those needs met are pretty destructive, and that might be the overconsumption of something, whether that's overconsumption of social media, overconsumption of alcohol, of drugs, of food, of the internet, like whatever that is, of spending, right? So much of those strategies are to try to offer ourselves comfort, to try to offer ourselves a sense of connection, peace, purpose, right? So when you know how it is that you want to feel, then you got some choices to make. Then you've got to decide, how can you align your actions to better support how it is that you want to feel. Right? So do you know how to actively cultivate more joy in your life? What brings about joy? And what can you do on a daily basis that can cultivate more joy for yourself? What can you do for more peace if that is something that you want to feel? For me, especially with these little twins, right? For me, having an environment that feels peaceful is one of my favorite ways to kind of calm down when things feel crazy and hectic. So that oftentimes will just mean like cleaning off the island and the counters before I go to bed at night. Just so there's kind of like things are tidied and picked up. It might mean diffusing some essential oils, having some low lighting on. It means practicing some good boundaries and saying no to stuff more often than I needed to before, because it's crazy trying to get two little people, 3 months old, out of the house, right, in a Minnesota winter. It's nuts. So what can I do to cultivate more of that peace, that joy, that connection for myself, right? So what are small things you can do every day? I'm not talking big things. I'm not talking things that are going to cost a lot of money, right? A massage every week would be awesome. That's probably not in the budget for everybody, right? So what is something you can do small on a daily basis? What is something you can do on a weekly basis, right? Having that time of reflection, going to a favorite class that really lights you up. What is something that you can do on a bigger monthly basis, right? So as I was thinking about this Hawaii adventure, I don't think Hawaii's in the cards anytime soon for me. But what I do know is that having a travel fund that I can save towards to have an adventure, because I love a good adventure, knowing that each month I'm putting some money away, even if it's a small amount, to try to take an adventure in the future, feels really purposeful to me. Maybe that's meeting with Todd, our financial advisor through HR, who's awesome, by the way, to kind of figure out what are some of those financial goals, right? It's reaching out to a friend and saying, hey, here's how I'm feeling. Here's what's going on for me. So my challenge to you is to really get clear on how you want to feel more of the time, and then create some actionable items, a daily basis, a weekly basis, and a monthly basis, to help you get closer to feeling those ways, right? Because when we are able to take our power in that way, we're able to feel more of how we want to feel more of the time. And that, my friends, is incredibly satisfying. And then when those really difficult feelings come up, because they will and they do every day, because life is hard and people we love are also going through hard times, and the world is struggling, right, in big and little ways. When we can recognize those feelings and go back to needs, constantly going back to needs, we're able to comfort ourselves and move through them with more ease and more power. So there are some Be Well resources that I think can be really helpful here. I'm just going to do a little time check. Yep. That can be really helpful if you're interested in going deeper into any of this. If you're looking for more support, we got you. That's what we're here for. That's what we do. So in health and wellness, my colleague Jackie Hansen and I are underneath the Be Well umbrella. We do health coaching. We do consults. So whether you're looking for a deeper dive into this stuff, I'm happy to work with you. If you're looking for ways to cultivate more meaning and joy, understanding how to work with your feelings and needs, reach out to us. A one-time consult might be really helpful. Or if you're looking for some more expansive support, we offer health coaching anywhere from 4 to 8 sessions to really help you get closer to your goals, your well-being goals. We also have a Be Well practice group. It actually starts next week. We'll be talking about feelings and needs. It's a 7-week online group. It's going to be from 5:30 to 6:30 on Tuesday nights. It's material that I've gathered all about how to live a more joyful, thriving life. And each week we look at a new topic. We look at positivity. We look at how to cultivate more flow. We look at relationships, about how to make more meaning, and how to create goals that really stick. So if that's something that you're looking to do, you can find more about that on our website as well. Tobacco cessation, we added that in because, as we talked about, everything we do is all about needs, right? So often smoking is all about needs. There's a nicotine addiction. You bet your bottom dollar. But we can support you with free nicotine replacement therapies to help with the nicotine part. The trickier part isn't the nicotine. The trickier part is behavioral. And that's about needs, right? So often we reach for that cigarette or for the tobacco because we're looking for a sense of comfort. We're looking for a sense of a connection. And so my colleague Jackie Hansen is a certified tobacco treatment specialist, and she'll talk long and hard all about ways that you can support yourself to meet those needs without the cigarette. And it's a really great program with a really high success rate. So if that's something that you're interested in, reach out to us. Oftentimes there are some big, deep mental health concerns that might be bubbling up for you, maybe feelings of grief and loss that feel like they're burying you alive, that's where I would really suggest reaching out to our partners in work-life connections. We've got 4 therapists. I know them, I support them, I love them. They are so good at what they do. So if you're dealing with a big mental health concern, or just maybe looking for some short-term therapy, you get 5 free sessions on a fiscal year basis. So reach out to those work-life connection folks if you're looking for some more emotional therapy support. They are so good at what they do, and we're really, really grateful to be able to partner with them. Speaking of partnering, Eric Wilkinson is one of those great therapists. He is new to work-life connection, and I know he's got a passion for mindfulness. And so this next Recharging Resilience webinar is going to be on February 13th with Eric. He's going to be talking all about mindfulness and how to communicate mindfully, which is another huge tool, right, to really grow the health of our relationships. So mark your calendars for that. I'm absolutely sure it's going to be a great event, February 13th at 12:15. All right, friends. And lastly, I got some references, right? Because if you are really into affect labeling and how it disrupts the amygdala in your response to affective stimuli, right? If you want to do that deep dive on the research behind what I'm talking about, here are some references for you. So you can kind of geek out on neural pathways, which is my idea actually of a really good time. So would love to support you with that. So we'll have these references here on our website as well. And for any of you that want to rewatch this or send it to a friend, we are going to have the recording on YouTube. You'll be able to get to it through our YouTube channel, as well as our health and wellness website. So let's see here. All right, so let's take some questions, shall we? Yeah, Diane, how do you deal with something that is beyond your control? So for instance, politics. Yeah, big question, Diane. Thanks for asking. You know, I think for us, it is about getting clear about what you can control and what you can't, right? So figuring out, all right, what's that need? Maybe that need is for more harmony. Maybe that need is for understanding, right? So figuring out, all right, how can you create some of that within the places that you have relationships? Where is that common understanding, that common ground of respect? How do you want to be involved politically, right? For some folks, being involved politically is a form of self-care. So being, getting involved with lobbying, calling your senators and your Congress people, getting involved on a grassroots level, if that's something that resonates with you and feels calming for you. Sometimes it means reducing the amount of information that's coming at you, really getting clear on, all right, how much news consumption is going to be good for my well-being? And kind of having a boundary around that on when are you starting to feel the overwhelm and the fear? And then how do you want to work with that? How do you want to decrease some of those feelings? Because I think that is something that other generations have never dealt with before, this constant 24/7 onslaught of news. So really notice how is that coming up for you and figure out what's your best plan of attack. Question, should you work to deal with feelings on your own or involve another person when appropriate? Great question. So what I suggest is to work with feelings on your own first, right? See if you can identify them, especially the needs. See if you can begin to meet your own needs first. And sometimes that involves getting another person involved as well. And so that NVC model, that nonviolent communication model, actually has really a big part of the framework is making requests of other people to have them help them meet your needs. And so that would be something I would suggest to kind of look into. Perhaps you find that maybe a coworker or your spouse or a sibling or whomever that you're in relationship with, and there's tension and there's conflict and you got to work it out, right? NVC has a really helpful process of doing that, staying away from judgment and instead making observations and requests based on feelings and needs. So you really stay in that place of feelings and needs of like, hey, this is how I'm feeling. This is a need that's really important to me. Would you be willing to X, Y, and Z, and then have a really specific request? I attribute NVC to saving my marriage. Literally, we use NVC a lot in our house, and there is something incredibly transformative. It takes practice, and it's a little cumbersome and clunky at first, but the more that you can get clear on what those feelings and needs are for yourself, then you're clear about what you're asking from the other person. And it's pretty transformative work. So do some Google searching out there. There's some really, really good stuff. Do you have a needs feelings list that are oriented towards children? So Cindy, great question. Once again, the NVC, if you go on their website, just Google NVC. They've got a whole bunch of resources for children. Those magnets that I was mentioning, I got from the NVC store. And so to begin to just help kids recognize what their feelings are, and reflect back to them when you see their feelings, right? So, you see a little person and be like, are you feeling frustrated? Boy, I can see you just stomped your foot. Are you feeling angry? Are you feeling scared? And so beginning to use those feeling words as a question, helping them. So even if they're not feeling frustrated, then they can be like, no, I'm mad. And then you can be like, oh, okay, yeah, so you're mad. I can understand that, right? So kind of practicing using that language with kids, and helping them work with it can be a really empowering tool. They've got a lot of great posters, with like funny emojis of like steam coming out of heads and happy faces and scared faces to really help kids begin to understand the difference between, some of the idiosyncrasies of feelings. Yeah, good deal. All right. All right, Maureen said, is there a good way to try to inform others about this framework? Perhaps you understand it, but maybe you could help them, right? Oh man, I know. I think the world would be a really different place when we understood feelings and needs. I think one of the best things to do is to understand it yourself. There's some great books out there, and to begin modeling it. Because I know it seems really challenging, but you can be the only person in your household who's practicing NVC, but it can really be transformative. So I think some of it is modeling it yourself and really playing with the framework. There's also practice groups out there, NVC practice groups that you can be involved with. I know for sure there's one in Lexington. We've got them all over the country. And I would also suggest telling people about what you like about it, and kind of modeling it through your life that way. Maybe giving them a book or watching a video might be a good place to start too. But I think the more we can use it, the easier it is then to kind of model what it is, if that makes sense. Maureen says, how long has labeling emotions framework been around? I don't remember learning this as a child in the 90s. Yeah, Maureen, me neither. I know. That's a good question. I know a lot of the research that I've looked at have really come about in the 90s and 2000s. I know Richie Davidson at the University of Wisconsin, Madison was one of the first to really understand neuroimaging and notice where the brain lights up in regards to emotion. And that was in, I think the early 2000s. So I think as technology has advanced and we've been able to understand kind of the neural pathways that are happening, what lights up with the prefrontal cortex of the brain, I think the practice has probably followed followed the research. So some of it is new, although my guess is that I think Dr. Rosenberg has been working with this for sure in the 90s, and I think it got a lot bigger in the 2000s. So still pretty fresh, still pretty new. Yeah, wonderful. All right, everybody, thanks so much. So glad that you came. Don't hesitate to reach out. That is what we're here for in Be Well and in all of health and wellness. So glad that you're here. All right, be well, everybody. Take care. Happy New Year. Bye.